So I really, for the most part, since I've started this process and being a part of this PACBIC group and talking to Chris, have really only had positive experiences. I know that the people before me struggled to do it, and I think that maybe it just took that person to have to be in that role to start having these conversations with. This year we brought in another Indigenous elder who is a very accomplished chef herself, Bertha Sky, and she led a workshop on, and we did more traditional foods like stuff that she grew up eating, like baked whitefish and venison stew, and she made a dessert out of wild rice and all these types of things. And we were doing these things on a more smaller context to see the because this is all new ground that we're covering, and we wanted to say, well, let's try it out and see what happens. And everybody loved it. And I think like it helped that I knew the manager of East Meets West. Like John's a good friend of mine that we went to high school together with. So that helped bridge that gap. But if I didn't have that conversation with Chris before, like I can literally send Chris an email or call him on the phone and say, this is what we need to do. And he says his answer's always been back to me, well, let's find a way to do it. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And I think that, but the most important part is that we're having those conversations now, and I have that person that I can contact and say, let's have a conversation about this. We want to do this. I know all the no's. Like I know all the reasons why we can't do this. Let's start another column of how can we work together to get this done. So I think that and Paradise has been very very nice to me. They held on to my pot for me for 2 weeks after I forgot to pick it up and didn't throw it out on me, and I've called Chris at the last minute and said like a week's notice and said, oh, by the way, that event we're having for 200 people, could you have bowls and spoons set up too? And he's always said no problem, and it's a give and take. So not every event that we have do we bring in an Indigenous caterer or want all those Indigenous foods. We'll order the taco dip and the stuff like that. But when we do have our more important like graduation socials, all those type of community gathering things, we'd like to have more Indigenous foods, and I think that we are moving closer to that than we ever have been.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And a lot of the things that were kind of highlighted through this panel really shows the idea that like, food is really supposed to be a space where people can come together and share their experiences. But when you have conversations about food justice, it really highlights the idea that, and like the fact that certain communities are systematically excluded from being able to access these things that are supposed to be a necessity for life and daily living. Um, and it's great to see a lot of conversations around the progress that's being made, as evidenced even by panelists who are coming here, who are sharing their experiences, and people who are very eager to help that process continue and grow and improve as well. Um, and one thought also that I kind of had when we were kind of listening to this, these experiences being shared, is also just the idea of like, to some people, when these new products or these new food items are being brought to campus, to some people that's viewed as something that's novel, something that's foreign, but to some people that's a necessity for their daily living on campus, and even kind of also resorts to a space where people have to choose between their own identity and respecting the values that they brought when they came to this campus, and assimilation. So it's great to be able to continue these conversations, and I'm really excited that people here are very open and to being able to build on that in the future. And I'm looking forward to the question and answer period, which we're going to be entering into right now for the next 15 minutes or so. So I think that Jane or someone else will be wandering around with a microphone. If anyone wants to raise their hand, if they had a question to ask, and then any of the panelists will also be able to answer. So if you could just have a quick warm round of applause before we kind of start. Okay. Okay. And great.
Yeah, I can answer that. with our residents, with the meal plans, they are mandatory. And that is because we've made a commitment, the university's made a commitment to the students, the residents' dining halls, and mainly Centro, East meets West, my mini-Mac, that they will be open 7 days a week, whether we're busy or not. There's certain weekends and certain days during exams where the traffic flow through there is so minimal. So we're committed to keeping those open during the academic year, 7 days a week for the most part. What that entails is the costs of keeping that open. We have unionized staff on this campus, so we have to have unionized people in there. We can't send them home because it's slow, so we have a certain labor component. We have utility costs. We have rent costs to the university. We have equipment costs, maintenance costs, renovation costs. So the meal plan money is for those overhead costs and paying for those dining halls to stay open. So if we're not taking in that money, we're not subsidized. I think it's important to know hospitality is not subsidized by the university. We generate revenue. That's how we survive. We pay our bills from the revenue we generate, and then we return a small profit back to the university. So we're not subsidized by the university. So the meal plan costs are to operate our dining halls and to keep them up and running as best as we can, 7 days a week, busy or not. So that's why the meal plan dollars are there. Um, it's a difficult question, Anne. We struggle with the supply of kosher food. We cannot get kosher meals on campus. We can't have them delivered. We have no supplier for that. There was a study done by Sarah Silverberg, who was a former president of McMaster Hillel, on turning Bridges into a kosher operation, a kosher kitchen. The cost was an initial annual cost, a first-year cost of $40,000 to convert, and an ongoing cost of $30,000 a year, which, again, we're not subsidized by the university. We have very tight margins in the food service business. So Bridges is a place that's been open for 8 years, and this year we have our fingers crossed we might break even for the first time. So to add another $30,000 to $40,000 a year, we can't do it. So to have kosher as part of a meal plan, we would love to have those options, but we just can't get the product in, and we don't have a way to do it yet. I'm sure there's other universities that have it. I know U of T has a kosherized kitchen. U of T, again, a bit of a different example, you know. The money that U of T brings in, they can afford to have a kosher kitchen there. The amount of meal plans they have is phenomenal, and that's what pays for that. So we would love to do it, but we struggle again with cost and supply. Yeah. Could we do that? Yes. On paper, we could do that. As it stands right now, people think our food is expensive enough. But I must state that our meal plans are some of the lowest, if not the lowest meal plan rates in the province, and our retail pricing is in the 50th percentile across Canada. So we're not outrageous with what we do. We're combined, we're below average in our pricing. To look at, it's certainly something we could look at. And we're going to have to face this when we talk about halal foods. If it's 27 right now, maybe 30% higher in cost, we may have to have an additional upcharge for that. Could we create a kosher kitchen where we were charging X amount to cover that cost of $30,000 a year? Maybe it's an extra dollar on top of everything. That's possible. But I think we would get a lot of pushback that we're pricing ourselves out of the market, and I'm not going to pay, I'm just making things up, $15 for a lunch meal because it's kosher, and we're paying a premium to cover the cost of kosher certification and a rabbi coming in on a consistent basis.
Was that rather than people eating the kosher meal, how do people
Right.
built in the fact that there'd be more people
Yes.
to eat what I eat,
Right.
so that someone else
Right.
would be welcome.
Okay.
It's marginal to me.
Right. So we've been down that road with a number of things. Sustainability is a big one on this campus. Sustainability, the halal food, the kosher food. This has come up before. And we drive this back through the student dining committee that we deal with. And that is a fee. That's a fee that needs to be run through MSU and the university. If they would allow us to charge a $1 fee, a kosher, call it what you want, a diversity fee, diversity food fee. If we could charge $2 a student, I would be all for it. Again, it's not that we don't want to do it. We're trying to find solutions. So we've been driving that for 2 years now through student dining, and I don't believe it's gone anywhere. I spoke to AHIMA about it this year as well. And I will bring it up again to Justin, the new president, that if we can implement some type of fee for diversity, food, sustainability, whatever it may be, sustainability has a high cost to it as well. If we want to be more sustainable, we need to find the funds to do this. So that could work, but it has to be driven. It's not driven through hospitality. That's a university fee or a student fee. I'd love it if you could take it to their attention as well. The more people shouting about it, the more it might happen.
Well, Chris and I kind of talked about things in the doorway just before we started, and we had some of this conversation about, how do we frame